Mr. Raskin is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So it looks like a new conspiracy theory is born. Originally, the pipe bomber was supposed to be an anti-Trump person, which is why the name wasn't revealed. Then that's out the window when it turns out it's a pro-Trump election denier. Well, then they were saying, no, it was an inside job. It was by a former Capitol Police officer. That's out the window. That's not who the person was. So now I think the claim is, well, they got the person, yay for the FBI, hooray for Kash Patel. They got the person, but it took too long for them to do it. I mean, that's what the conspiracy theory has come to. I mean, this is just pathetic. Look, let's start with this. They tried to blame January 6th on Antifa on January 6th. Donald Trump did it himself in a conversation with Kevin McCarthy. McCarthy called him up from his office, desperate, saying we're being overrun. We're besieged here. You got to call off, your people, Donald Trump. And Trump said, oh, it's not my people, it's Antifa. And McCarthy said, no. Effectively, he said, no, I'm paraphrasing here. He said, they're in my office, they're your people, Mr. President. And then Trump said, well, maybe they just care a little bit more about a fair election than you do, Kevin. Again, paraphrasing, but that's the sum and substance of the conversation. Immediately, they wanted to try to pin it on Antifa. I mean, that was the whole methodology. That's what Matt Gaetz did when he came to the floor. Even after we were driven out of our chambers by MAGA and the Proud Boys and the Oath Keepers and other extremists who'd been called to storm the Capitol, because you got to go and fight like hell, Donald Trump said, and if you don't fight like hell, you're not going to have a country anymore. And they went to stop the steal. That was the slogan. They did exactly what they set out to do. And then they tried to blame it on Antifa. What a fraud it was. Was there any evidence, Mr. Romano, that Antifa was actually behind it? Did Donald Trump just pardon nearly 1,600 Antifa fighters? Is that what he did?
No, there was no evidence of that. In the hundreds of cases that I supervised, I saw no evidence that any person we charged was Antifa or was motivated or driven by Antifa.
Well, if it wasn't Antifa, surely it was undercover FBI agents who made all those people go out there and smash police officers in the face and storm the Capitol and try to overthrow the 2020 presidential election, right? What about the theory that this was really FBI sources? Undercover sources who did it?
I've seen no evidence of that. As I said before, there were informants who were present in the crowd, not at the direction of their FBI handlers. There were no undercover FBI agents directing the crowd. That is false information based on a statistic taken out of context.
All right, so essentially, what are our colleagues inviting us to believe today? Well, let's see. Ms. Hagman wants us to believe there was no insurrection, despite the fact that the House of Representatives voted that Donald Trump incited an insurrection. But she wants us to believe it didn't happen, despite the fact that you can find calls replete throughout the crowd and throughout the extremist groups calling for an overthrow of the government, calling for the assassination of Mike Pence and Nancy Pelosi, calling for the killing of members of Congress. But no, that didn't happen. So they want us to believe that Trump and Giuliani and Sidney Powell and their associates didn't lie by claiming the elections were stolen. In other words, they want us to believe the original lie that set America off on this path of chaos and division. They want us to believe that Donald Trump actually won the 2020 presidential election, which he lost by more than 7 million votes, 306 to 232 in the Electoral College, with more than 60 federal and state court decisions, including by 8 judges nominated to the bench by Donald Trump, rejecting and repudiating every claim of electoral fraud and corruption that Trump and his forces put forward in court. And they want to go back to it. They want us to believe that January 6th was provoked by the FBI. Even Director Patel said that was false. Even Patel rejects that one. They want to believe that the Capitol Police are responsible for hundreds of rioters attacking them. Sergeant Cannell, who fought in Afghanistan and said that he saw no violence abroad that remotely compared to the medieval mayhem and violence unleashed on the police officers that day, that he was at fault for it? Sergeant Cannell, who had to resign from the force because of injuries to his rotator cuff, his shoulder, and his left foot because he couldn't any longer meet the physical demands of the job, that this is something that he wanted? These officers who've suffered brain contusions, heart attacks, strokes, Brian Sicknick, who died the next day after injuries inflicted on him by the mob, that this was somehow their fault? It's obscene. It's absurd. I certainly hope we can expect more out of this subcommittee than that, Mr. Chairman. There are some lingering questions. Most of them could be answered by Donald Trump, who's never once testified under oath about what he did on January 6th, other than sit on his hands and probably order hamburgers and French fries while he watched the whole scene on TV unfold. Did nothing to send out the National Guard under his unilateral direct control in the District of Columbia. And if you don't believe me, look it up, Ms. Hagman. Look it up. The president controls the National Guard in the District of Columbia. I'll bet you a lunch with your former occupant of your office, your predecessor, Ms. Cheney, who's somebody who brought great honor to this institution. And I'll tell you this.
Okay.
And I'll tell you this. The truth is a resilient thing. We're not going to put up with a pack of lies in this subcommittee and a bunch of conspiracy theories. We're not. We're not. So have at it, throw what you want against the wall, but you better learn the first lesson they teach lawyers when you pass the bar. When you go to court, you better bring the evidence with you. Yield back.
Gentleman's time's expired.